Hello, I'm Michael Tam, a GP supervisor at the General Practice Unit Fairfield Hospital, located in southwestern Sydney. I'm an academic at the University of New South Wales and a member of the National Research and Evaluation Ethics Committee, the NREEC, which is the Human Research Ethics Committee of the RACGP. So, you want to do some general practice research? Congratulations! The first steps can be daunting with a new language, different expectations and research ethics. In the June 2015 edition of Australian Family Physician, Teng Liao, Professor of General Practice and Chair of the NREEC, and I had our Beginner's Guide to Research Ethics and Approval process published. In this video, I'll cover the 8 steps described in that paper. The 8 steps are in 3 main sections: how do I start, submitting ethics applications, and working together with human research ethics committees. How do I start? The number 1 step is to seek help and guidance at the beginning of the project. An ongoing relationship with experienced GP researchers from a local university or vocational training provider will help you brainstorm research and ethical questions and troubleshoot problems. This support is essential to avoid any major flaws in your study, which we see at times at the NREEC. Remember, wasting participants' time in a flawed study is inherently unethical. Number 2, decide on your research questions. It can be difficult to narrow down an exciting big idea into a question that can be meaningfully researched. Guidance and advice from experienced researchers is very helpful. You cannot ethically design the methodology of your study until you have a question, and these need to be clear, focused, and answerable. 3. Now that you have your questions, engage deeply with the ethical dimension of your project. A simple approach is to consider the 4 traditional bioethical principles. For example, respect for autonomy. Who are the participants, and are there any who may be particularly vulnerable? Non-maleficence. How will the risks to participants be minimized in the study? Also, allow adequate time to prepare the research plan and discuss ethical issues among the research team. Remember that ethics committees can be approached for advice informally. 4. Ask yourself the question of whether you need formal ethics approval. Generally, research activities will need ethics review. Things like audits and quality assurance activities do not, within the expectation that these activities are nonetheless conducted in an ethical manner. Research that carries negligible risk, where the only foreseeable risk is no more than inconvenience, for example, time filling out a survey, may not need ethics approval. Anything more than this will. As a rule of thumb, any study that involves interviews would not be considered as having negligible risk. Next section is on submitting ethics approval applications. So 5. Which ethics committee do I submit to? The RACGP's National Research and Evaluation Ethics Committee is the only GP-specific human research ethics committee in Australia. Generally, research conducted in or about general practice should have ethics approval from the NREEC. GP researchers who are affiliated with a medical school can potentially seek approval from university ethics committees. Of note, some research may need approval from specific ethics committees. For instance, research conducted in hospitals will need a site-specific approval from the Hospital Ethics Committee. 6. Completing ethics application forms. Applications are usually completed in the NEEF, an online structured questionnaire that seeks detailed and comprehensive information regarding the research proposal. Items that need to be attached include all information that will be provided to participants, such as advertisements, consent forms, and survey instruments. Applications must be thorough. Incomplete applications, such as projects that haven't been fully developed and don't include the required attachments, will not be approved. Next section is on working together with the Ethics Committee. 7. Responding to the committee's review comments. It is important that all the issues raised by the Ethics Committee are addressed comprehensively. Ensure that submitted documents are clearly written, labelled and organised. This avoids delay due to reviewer misunderstanding. Include revised documents in both tracked changes and changes accepted formats. As many Ethics Committee members are experienced researchers themselves, they may comment on the research methods, especially if there are issues. However, it is important to recognise that ethics committees primarily provide ethical review, not scientific. Research proposals should undergo peer review prior to submission. 8. Your study was approved. What next? Researchers need to ensure that they have acceptable research governance procedures in place. The ethics committees need to be informed of problems that arise during the conduct of the study, and researchers need to submit an annual report. Secure data storage of research materials usually needs to be maintained for no less than 5 years. In GP research, it may be reasonable for the project to be conducted within the governance of the clinic. However, it is important to maintain relationships with other experienced researchers. To review the 8 steps again. It is important to remember the big picture in research ethics. Ethics guidelines are not simply a set of rules, and their application should not be mechanical. Rather, the underlying moral principles and values and the virtues held as desirable for a researcher should be reflected upon and embedded in the research. Thank you for watching. For more information, read our AFP paper. It is available free on the web at tinycc/researchethics.